And there'd be people out on the corner to my, hey man, we got chat. And they'd be like, man, no, you don't. I'm going over here to 545 Lyle Avenue, or I'm going to 445 Lyle Avenue. Those are two of the houses that I went to prison for. Yeah, I mean, there was a point where, I had a team, man, and we all ended up in prison. Ended up with 20 years. Another one ended up with 10. I ended up with 40. Dudes that are still in there that probably deserve to get out more than I deserve to get out.
Welcome back to the Broken Home Podcast. Hope you all having a great weekend. Before we get into this one, I need you all to hit that subscribe button because we have an amazing guest tonight. We have author, fellow YouTube host, Chad Marks. How you doing tonight, bro?
I'm doing good. How are you, brother?
Doing real good, my man. Doing real good. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Well, I appreciate you having me.
No problem. No problem. So how we usually start this is we take it back, get a little bit to know our guest a little bit. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Rochester, New York, not far from Buffalo. Some people might not know exactly where that's at. Just think about the Buffalo Bills, and I'm in that area.
And how long have you been down there? Your whole life then?
My whole life, born and raised in Rochester, New York, brother.
Oh, wow.
Now, usually we go through a lot of like the beginning, but for this one here, we just kind of wanted to get right into it. So how does someone from Rochester, New York, born and raised, end up in a place like Big Sandy, Kentucky? And can you explain to the people what Big Sandy is?
100%. So anyway, like I said, man, I'm from Rochester, New York. At the age of 24, I was sentenced to a 40-year federal mandatory minimum. I had a crack cocaine case with 2 guns. I got 5 years for, people might think this is crazy, I got 5 years for a shotgun, 25 years for a 22 rifle, and 10 years for the drugs. So now your viewers might be like, damn, how's he out then if he got 40 years? Well, what happened was Donald Trump passed what's called the First Step Act, and he opened the door where federal judges can review your sentence. And if the judge finds that there's extraordinary and compelling reasons to reduce your sentence, then he can do so. So that's how I ended up making it out. I served 17 years, 5 months, 21 days. And how did I end up in Big Sandy? Obviously, the Federal Bureau of Prisons in the United States, they classify you by points. The younger you are, the higher your points are. You got violence in your case, you get some points jacked up. So I end up in Big Sandy, probably one of the most dangerous prisons in the country. And I end up there pretty much, man, when I'm in my 20s, seen a lot of things, a lot of wild things. Definitely not a place where anybody really wants to be. You're walking in there and you're like, you heard all the stories. You're walking in there, you're like, wow, man, this is what my life is like. But, at the end of the day, man, I made some choices. I was a crack dealer. I was a white crack dealer in my neighborhood, and I regret those decisions, but that's what I did, man, and landed me in prison for 40 years.
How did you first become a crack dealer down there? Was that the only thing available to you at the time? Like, what was the dynamics behind that?
So, before I was a crack dealer, obviously I was a cocaine dealer, right? Started selling bags. You're young, you're poor. I grew up in a fucked up house, fucked up family. My mother, was eventually a single mother on welfare. My father left the house. Actually, when I was 3 years old, my father shot at me and my mother with a 12-gauge shotgun. And we ended up getting away, and he ended up taking off. He went to Nevada, Las Vegas. So pretty much, man, my mother was a single mother on welfare. The struggle, poor. I remember, when I had 2 pairs of jeans back then, bro. And then I got to an age where one of my homeboys, a kid named Booper, his uncle was really a pimp, a drug addict. His mom was a prostitute. And, we used to hang over there at his house. And those were the drug dealers, right? His uncle was a drug dealer, but also a drug addict. So you're seeing this stuff that he started selling bags. So I'm like, man, I need to sell some bags too. When I say bags, back then they were selling $10 bags of cocaine. And people were cooking it up, freebasing, whatever. So around the age of 13, man, that's when I kind of first started.
So you're hanging out at the trap, seeing how the addicts are pushing it, and it was kind of like an idolization, I guess, or did you just see the money and you were like, I got to get that money too?
It wasn't really an idolization. Really, man, I started out selling fake cocaine until I can get enough money to buy my own 8-ball. I think back then we probably bought a 16. Then went from an 8 to an 8-ball, from an 8-ball to a quarter, then 2 quarters. You buy another quarter, then you got enough money to get a half. Then you sell that, buy another half. Now you got enough money to get an ounce, and you just, you escalate. But it wasn't about the money or glamorizing. It was about, we were fucked up. We had nothing. We were broke. We were poor. Bunch of, poor white kids in the hood. And we found a way, man. You know what I mean? Not that I glamorize that or, anything like that. It cost me 40 years of my life eventually, but that's how it started, man. We were tired of being broke, tired of being hungry. And you know what? When you only have two pairs of pants, you resort to what you have to do.
Exactly. And a lot of people don't realize that. They have no idea what these neighborhoods are like. They think that, oh, if these kids could just go get a job at McDonald's. Some of these towns don't even have a McDonald's in them, don't even have any type of employment to go get a job at. And half the town is an addict. The other half is selling it at the trailer park kind of a thing. And they don't see that environment. So they just think, oh, they can go get a job. So basically you like become a victim of circumstance and you got to survive. You're right. You got to survive.
You know, I'm from a neighborhood that they call Ghost Town, right? In Rochester, New York. It is a ghost town in name and in right. You know what I'm saying? It's full of drug addicts. My father ended up coming back from Las Vegas years later. You know, he was a drug addict. By now he's smoking crack. Pretty, you know, infamous, I guess you could say, crackhead in my neighborhood, bro. I hate to say that about my father, but that's who he had become. He also was a big weed dealer, right? And he'd go on binges, bro. Eventually he started getting money and, you know, doing what he was doing, but then he'd go on binges for, you know, a week at a time. His wife couldn't find him. He's over there blowing thousands and thousands of dollars. And the kid I talked to you about, Booper, his uncle, really, they had what was called a smokehouse back then. So people would come there and get high, and my dad would be there. He used to flip his hat up like this and, you know, start chewing on his tongue. And, you know, they were charging my dad $20 to get him a glass of water because he was dying of thirst. It was embarrassing, you know what I mean? My dad wasn't back with my mother, but you know, that was still my father, bro. And that's the neighborhood that we grew up in. And sometimes I say this not in the sense of being like White Boy Rick, but when you watch the White Boy Rick documentary when he was a kid and his parents were partiers and they're drinking beer and they're listening to Led Zeppelin and ZZ Top back then, you know, that's what our uncles were like. And you know, that's what our family was like. But it was the hood, bro. You know what I mean? And then eventually, you know, they're all out there doing what they're doing, smoking weed. That turns into cocaine. Then cocaine turned into, you know, all them white people turning into crackheads, man.
Yep. Did you create quite a name for yourself before you were busted? Were you the guy to go to get the stuff then?
You know, I'm going to be honest with you, right? And I don't glamorize this shit, and I want people to know that. I was probably
absolutely
the biggest white drug dealer in my neighborhood, right? And we had a team, man. We did. We had a team. You know, people, like I said, my father was an infamous, you know, crackhead. I hate to say it, but every white person that smoked crack knew who my dad was, right? And we had the best shit. I'm not going to lie. We had the best shit. And there'd be people out on the corner to my, hey, man, we got Chad's dope. And they'd be like, man, no, you don't. I'm going over here to 545 Lyle Avenue. Or I'm going to 445 Lyle Avenue. You know, those are two of the houses that I went to prison for. But yeah, I mean, there was a point where, you know, I had a team, man, and we all ended up in prison. One of my boys ended up with 20 years. Another one ended up with 10. I ended up with 40. Another kid that used to kick it with us, man, 13 years. I mean, it all went bad. You know what I mean? And that's it. That's what the road is. You want to sell drugs. You want to get money. You want to do this. You want to do that. Guess what? You're going to prison. And I went to some serious prisons. And, you know, some people think that federal prison is Camp Good Day Special Times. It's not. It's definitely not. You know, I went to a prison where, dude, violence was on an astronomical level. I wrote a book about it. You guys, you know, I think I sent you over the audio book.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the book. Let me grab it. This is the book. Blood on the Razor Wire, same name as my YouTube channel. It is a violent book. It is a book where when you read it, you're going to be probably like, damn. And people can, you know, I'm plugging the book real quick too. You can check out the first three chapters for free on Amazon. You know, I promise people they will not be disappointed, but that's what federal prison is really like. People are getting killed in there. People are getting stabbed in there. You know, bad things are happening to people in there. You know, you might end up victimized. But that's what federal prison really is like in the United States.
It's a horror story from the things that I have seen already. But when you're coming in on day one and a guard is saying you best be getting a knife, you know, what's going through your head and how long does it take for you to get a knife?
So my mindset, man, when you walk in there, I already knew that, you know, this was a bad place that I was going to, you know what I mean? So really when I walk in there that first day, of course, you know, all the white dudes approach you, who you with, who you running with, you know, you're running with the white dudes. And then, you know, they give you 30 days to get your paperwork. As soon as you get your paperwork, man, they usually give you a knife. And I got a knife pretty fast. But as soon as I got there, I had some friends, dude. One of the dudes I tried to interview on my channel, he won't come on. He's a SAC member, Soldiers Aryan Culture. Like when I went there, I knew a bunch of these dudes when I got there because I had been in pre-trial with some of these dudes. There was a kid from DMI, Dead Men Incorporated out of Baltimore, Bobby. Bobby, if you're listening, shout out to Bobby. So as soon as I get there, and I'm not glamorizing, you know, jail and prison, But I did have a reputation in jail, bro. I was facing a life sentence, so I'm kind of a big kid. I didn't play no games either, you know what I mean? So not that I was running around in the county jail stabbing people, because I wasn't, but I was definitely involved in a lot of physical altercations and, pre-trial. So as soon as I got there, them dudes knew me and they're like, "Oh shit, what's up?" And they had a little bit of respect for me. When they seen me the next day, those weren't the dudes in my unit. So when they knew me, they're telling the other one, "Hey, this dude's a good dude," whatever. It kind of helped me out. It kind of helped out, coming in. But you do want to set a mark when you go in a place like that. Unfortunately, I talk about in the book where I hit the kid when we're playing baseball. That was kind of early on in my stay where he disrespected. And I'm like, this is an opportunity to show people that, you know what I mean? I get busy if I have to. So immediately, man, you get a knife immediately. As soon as your stuff clears, you're like, here's a knife. Or you start figuring out how to make one, pretty soon. Was I a little shocked at first? I talk about it in the book. Yeah. When the kid Dennis Mooney's like, "Yo, this is what we're using." I mean, they got steel rebar in there. They got what they call bone crushers. They're cutting steel out of the beds with nail clippers and the blades off of hair clippers. And people are just sitting there, you're cutting until eventually you get a knife.
Yeah, it's a totally different world in there. Total different world. And it's all about survival. How long did you spend in county before going to the prison?
I was in the county. I had a 1-count indictment, right? So I'm in the county for about a year getting ready to go to trial. And then what happens is they supersede my indictment with 16 more counts. So now I went from a mandatory 10 to life, which I probably would have ended up with 10, 11 years, 12 years back then. Now they supersede me with 16 counts. So once they supersede me with the 16 counts, my mandatory minimum goes from 10 to 40. And eventually I go to trial, I lose, and I get sentenced to the mandatory minimum 40 years.
What were you thinking when you heard you're getting 40 years? Did you expect to die in there?
Well, when you get to 40 years, dude, I'm not going to lie to you, it broke me down, right? And that night when I went back to the jail, they wanted to lock me in a cell. They're like, "Hey, lock him up," like suicide watch type shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, I'm not hurting myself. But I was so angry at the system that I knew I had to fight. I had to fight to get the fuck out of this place. You know what I mean? So I fought, man. And I started learning the law. And, your viewers don't know yet, but I became one of the best, if not the best jailhouse lawyer in the federal prison system. I wrote the first compassionate release motion to ever win in federal court after the First Step Act got passed by Donald Trump. I wrote the Conrado Cantu case. He was actually a former cop, former mayor, ended up with like 27 years. I wrote his stuff, and thousands of people have gotten out of jail since then. And eventually I wrote my own motion a few months later. But of course, the lawyers and stuff were out here. They made it better, but I wrote the first one, and I wrote the first article telling people how they could get out of federal prison through compassionate release. It was published in the Prisoners Legal News and Criminal Legal News.
Hey, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. You're just saving lives, essentially. You're saving lives.
Yeah, it's not I want people to know that too, man. It's not about me. It was about, all the other people that are stuck in there, helping other people. I figured something out, and, I'm thankful. It was a gift from God to be able to figure that out. Eventually, other people would have figured it out too. But I did figure it out, and you know what? It has helped people, and I'm happy that it has. There's plenty of people in there that deserve a second chance. Dudes that are still in there that probably deserve to get out more than I deserve to get out. And they're stuck in there. People like Ian Owens, good friend of mine, got like 200 years, man, for the same charges that I had. So I'm hopeful that he ends up getting out.
200 years for drugs.
For drugs.
That's insane. That's insane, especially when they're talking about decriminalizing so much of these drugs now. And then you got people sitting in jail for 10 years for an ounce of weed. It's just nuts.
Definitely nothing nice, right?
That's for damn sure.
I had a good buddy. You mentioned the weed. I want your viewers to know Jimmy Romans was sentenced to life in prison for weed. No violence, no criminal history, really. He ends up getting life. He does 12 years. I got out of jail. I wrote his clemency, had a bunch of people advocating for him. Alice Johnson, who Trump ended up letting out. And he got out on clemency. And, there's a lot of stuff going on now, so your viewers know. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys know, but Joe Biden granted 31 clemencies to people in federal prison. One chick that had a bunch of heroin. And he's supposed to do thousands and thousands of these clemencies. Hopefully he does. The Sentencing Commission, everything that I got out on the First Step Act, what they did was they said these laws are wrong, but they didn't make them retroactive. So that means it only applies to the guys that are coming in, but all the people that are still sitting in there suffering, it doesn't apply to them. So what happened was the Sentencing Commission has now, submitted their proposals and their recommendations, and they're going to give judges authority. So there might be a guy in Florida that can't get out, but he has the same exact charges as me. Because in Florida, they say, "Oh, we don't have the authority to do that. Federal judges in Florida can't do that." Well, now the Sentencing Commission has pretty much said, "Look, you're the judge. If you want to take a second look at these cases, you can go ahead and do that and start letting these people out if you believe that there's extraordinary and compelling reasons to do so.
The way that you were released, what made you want to advocate and start doing this mission that you've been on? Most people would just be like, oh, I fucking lucked out, and then they go back out and do whatever they used to do and get back into old patterns. What made you get on this path?
So this is the deal, right? And this is from experience. And I think that society's perception is people go to jail, they get out, and they go right back. Not always true, right? I mean, they give you the statistics and all that. From my experience, most dudes that done a lot of time get out and turn their lives around, man. A lot of people do. Not all, but a lot of people do. It's usually the guys that do 3 or 4 years that get out and they, you fall back into that pattern because you don't appreciate your freedom. A lot of them guys get out of prison, man, and they get involved in the social media. And the image that you project is the image that you have to protect. So if they're out here faking, I'm this dude, they get back in the drug game, they get back into doing the things that they do. But I told dudes, man, before I left, I said, I'm going to be the voice for the voiceless. That was because I know what it's like to suffer, man. I know what it's like to bag people and not have no money and bag lawyers to help you. And then I know what it's like to realize that a lot of these lawyers, unfortunately are full of shit. They take your money and then, they don't do nothing, man. It's a big lie. It's a game. So when I got out of prison, my focus was, I'm going to help my boys, man. And the first person I advocated for and I wrote his clemency petition was Jimmy Romans, and Trump let him out. And this is the thing. I was in there with a 40-year sentence, and I'm thinking, I do have some violence in my background, all right? And I'm thinking, damn, man, this is Jimmy. This is my partner. I'm walking around with him every day. I said, he's going to get clemency, and I'm going to get stuck here, man. I said, man, I'm going to miss this dude, man. I felt sad when I would think about that, right? And I ended up getting out before he got out. I ended up getting that compassionate release. And I left him, and he's like, damn, bro. And when I was leaving, he's like, man, don't leave me in here, man. Do everything you can, brother. And I said, man, I got you, man. And I got out of jail, and I did everything that I told them I would do. And when I got out, I'm on federal probation. I get out, and they tell me, you got to get a job. But I already had a plan, bro. I had my book. I didn't know anything about YouTube, for real. I had my book, and I've been doing legal work for 18 years. I said, I'm getting out of prison, and I'm starting a paralegal company. And the parole officer pretty much looked at me like, yeah, all right, dude. And I'm like, I'm going to show you better than I can tell you. He's like, you got to get a job. And I said, I'm the job. I'm going to show you that I'm the job. And I did it. I put a paralegal and prison consultant firm together, Freedom Fighters. It's not a nonprofit. I do make money. I do help people. I just did a case for a woman, Angela Roy, sentenced to 270 months in federal prison. She's in a wheelchair. I did that pro bono. I do a lot of pro bono stuff too. But I came out here to help people because I know what it's like to suffer. And that's the one thing that pisses me off. You got these advocates, people that I used to work with, from prison. Like, I used to think they were really helping me. And then I got out of prison. I got to know these people. And I'm like, wow, these people don't really give a shit. They care about being in, media clips and going to the White House and going to this meeting, and they're begging the president to let people out on clemency. I win my shit the hard way, man. I win it in the courtroom, man. I've probably helped over 100 men and women get out of prison. And I'm not exaggerating the numbers, man. I've got 5 or 6 life sentences reduced to time served, or went from life to 30 years, life to 35. These dudes now got light at the end of the tunnel, got 20 in. And I do a lot of big cases, man.
That's amazing, bro.
Man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you on behalf of everybody that's still stuck in there and the people that you've helped. Thank you, man. That's amazing. So they need a voice, and it sounds like you are becoming that voice, one of them.
People do need a voice, man. I know what it's like not to have a voice. I know what it's like. I used to beg people to help me, and I used to tell people in prison, hey, I'm gonna do something every day to get out of here, man. I got a 40-year sentence. If I get out, I'm gonna get out at 65. What am I gonna do with my life? So I used to write people. If it was writing a congressman, a congresswoman, a senator, taking a program, writing the judge. I mean, dude, honestly, I wrote my judge from prison. It took me years to do that. He wrote me back. And, I eventually get out of prison. And about 8-9 months ago, I met with my judge in his chambers with my wife. And I ended up coming home, remarrying my ex-wife, who I was married to when I went to prison. Obviously, we separated because I had a 40-year sentence. What else was she going to do, right?
Yeah.
I get out of prison. We reconnect. We end up getting remarried. We have 2 little twin boys. And I went down there and met with the judge with my wife and my 2 kids. And I'm going to tell you guys something else, for the people that are listening. Craziest thing in the world happened to me 2 days ago. I take my I just out of spur of the moment, I'm like, hey, you want to go out to dinner tonight? I'll have my mom watch the kids. We go out to dinner. And I walk in this restaurant. It's a pretty nice place. Tony D's. Big shout out to Tony D's. I walk into Tony D's. And I see this lady staring at me, right? And she goes, Chad Marks? And I go, yeah, I know your face. She says, Terry Deer cop. She was the lead investigator in my case, right? She's been on First 48 and everything. And she, we talk, we ended up talking for like 30 minutes, man. And, she pretty much says, you deserve to go to prison, but, I'm happy that you turned your life around. I don't think you deserve 40 years. And at the end of the conversation, bro, as crazy as this may sound, she actually gave me a hug. Goodbye. Like, take care of yourself. I'm happy for you. I'm glad you're free. I think, pretty much, I think you didn't deserve what you got, but you did deserve to go to prison. And the truth is, it's true. I did deserve to go to prison. I didn't deserve 40 years at the age of 24, but I deserve to go to prison. So, all these things are happening in my life where I actually ran into the dude that started my case, the informant, right? And when I first ran into him, I was just like, dude, man, you're a piece of shit, bro. And I just brushed him off. A year later, I see him again. And I end up interviewing him on my YouTube channel, right? My YouTube channel is the same name as the book, Blood on the Razor Wire. I interviewed the dude that wore a wire on me, man. And I told him, look, man, you didn't really send me to prison. I sent myself to prison. It was my choices that sent me to prison. You might have helped that along, but it was me. I was the one selling drugs. I was the one polluting the community. So it's on me, big dog. And you know what? I forgive you, man. He's like, man, I'm scared. And I'm like, bro, there ain't no reason to be scared of me. I don't want to, cause you no harm. I wish the best for you. And now you're still doing the same thing you were doing when I went to jail. You're a vicious drug addict. You're pretty much homeless. You're struggling. You weigh about 100 pounds. And I was like, man, I wish the best for you, man. Anything I can do to help you, man, I'm willing to help you. And it was closure. And now for me to run into the lead investigator, and there's closure again. So,
wow.
It is
signs from the universe. Signs from the universe, for sure.
For sure, man.
Would you be able to take us through what led up to your arrest then? And just for the listeners, you guys know that we do not glorify violence. We do not glorify any legal activity, but it's for an educational purposes with this. It's for the people that are coming up that are living the similar situations, and hopefully that they can come from this and think twice before they act. With that being said, Mr. Marks, would you be able to tell us what led up? How did it go down?
So this is the deal, right? I like to tell people, man, I was convicted of a nonviolent crime because I was, right? And that's everybody's thing. Hey, man, I'm convicted of a nonviolent crime. I should get out of prison. But the truth of the matter is this, where I come from, man, we were a group of violent kids, right? From a young age, man. I mean, it just came with the territory. You grew up fighting in school. You grew up fighting in elementary school, in middle school. Then it escalates. You become a drug dealer, and now you're doing other violent things. And, other people are willing to do things. And you're like, well, then if they're willing to pull out guns and do this and do that, then we're willing to do the same. So this is what happens. Like I said, I become a drug dealer. We are a little bit violent. There is some violence in the case. I end up beefing with one of the kids that was one of the people that worked for me, man. Eventually, he even had a daughter with my sister. Something happens where they rob them at a drug house, right? There's a beef with these people. Now, we know who it is. We go back. We're looking for them. They come back and they shoot at us. My boy's like, yo, man, they're outside. So we run upstairs. We look out the window. And when I look out the window, boom, I feel the glass hit me before I even hear the gunshot. My boy gets shot in the arm. Crazy as this is, his name's Wody, Tommy Hardy. He has a Jesus tattoo here, right? He gets shot in the arm right between the eyes of Jesus. He's on the ground. I pull the gun from the side of the house, from the side of the wall right there, and I'm trying to shoot a shotgun out of the window just to, get these people off us, because I don't. Once they come in the house, now we're really in danger, right? I'm shooting back, boom, boom, boom. They take off, and eventually, within about 2 or 3 weeks, me and this kid start beefing now, and it started to get violent. He went into one of the houses. He pistol whipped one of my workers, this kid Phil Bianchi. He ends up pistol whipping him. So now there's this beef, and I know why the cops end up arresting me is when they arrest me, they tell me why. They said, man, you guys, one of you were going to get killed, and they wanted you off the street because one of you guys were going to kill each other. So within 2 weeks, dude, they said they had a year-long investigation. It just means that when they arrest someone or they pull someone over, leaving your house, they write a FIF, or a field information form. This is what we pulled the guy over. He said he bought drugs from Chad, or he bought drugs from E, and E's, working for Chad, whatever. So long story short, when it starts to get violent, they're like, yo, we're about to crack down. So I own a pizza shop in the city right on Emerson and Curlew Street. I'm leaving the pizza shop to go meet with someone, my connect. So when I go over there to meet with him, I see people. I see cars. Very observant, always have been. And I tell him on the phone, and they got it wiretapped, so it's part of the case. And I say, hey, man, you see them motherfuckers right there? And he's like, yeah, hold up, pull up. So I pull up, jump out. We do what we do. We make a transaction. I pull away. Now, I'm not really understanding that this is the cops. I just happen to see that car, and now I think we're safe, right? Because if I really thought it was the cops, I would have never made the transaction. So now we're driving, and I get blocked in by all these cars. And the first people that I really see, I remember seeing a black cop, right, with a gun. But I don't know he's a cop. They're not jumping out of police cars. They're jumping out of, unmarked vehicles. Get out, get out. They get us out. My boy jumps out and runs, gets rid of whatever he had. Eventually, they find it. I think it was 125 grams of crack. They find the crack, put us on the ground. They strip search. They couldn't find the drugs right away. They strip searched me in the snow, February 4th, 2003. They stripped me, man, butt ass naked in the road on one of the main streets, right there by, you guys aren't from here, but Dewey Avenue. I'm on Dewey Avenue. I think it was Sealy Terrace. And they stripped me, man, in the middle of the road. They can't find no drugs, pull my pants off and everything. So, that's how the arrest happens. They arrest me. They take me down to the county jail. State authorities arrest us. They end up giving me a bail. The next day at my preliminary hearing, I get a bail. My wife, who I'm married to now, she ends up bailing me out. They're taking forever to give me my stuff, my belt. They're like, oh, we're looking for it. We got you. And I'm like, man, that's crazy. I've been in jail 100 times. This never happens. Eventually, they give me my belt. I walk out and I see these two dudes. And they're like, hey, Chad Marks, taking you over to the federal building. And they took me to the federal building, bro. And now I get in there and I'll never forget this. You ever watch Leave It to Beaver and the Brady Bunch?
Yeah.
So remember like how the dens look, like these rich white people have a den?
Yeah.
Never seen a den ever in my life, right? Except for on TV. And I walk in this courtroom and instantly it just like my brain goes to like Leave It to Beaver and Brady Bunch. I feel like I'm in these rich people's den and it's a federal courtroom. And the judge is up all real high. And it is intimidating when you walk in there. And they start talking about 10 to life. I'm like, holy shit, 10 to life. And now I know that I'm in for a serious ride. I used to think the feds only arrest, mafia guys and big time drug dealers. I'm like, I'm a petty ass drug dealer, man. And I'm in the federal building. So, that's my arrest. That's how it happens.
And then you go to the county. What was your first day in the county like? Or have you been to the county before this?
Oh yeah, I've been to the county, man, plenty of times.
Okay.
And our county,
so you
man, is a rough spot.
Is it? Tell us about it then, because a lot of people say the counties are worse than the actual prisons in some places.
It depends on where you're at, what state and what federal prison you're in, right? Our county jail, they got what's called the mainframe back then. The mainframe was where all the jail bars were. They had other open dorms. That's usually where they send the people that are stealing shit and, drug addicts. They all go to the nice spot of the county jail. But you end up on that mainframe, man, and you don't know nobody. You're hit. You're a victim. They victimize your ass. I did a lot of amateur fighting when I was a kid too, you know what I mean? So I ended up, man, when I first went to the county jail, I ended up knowing a couple cats that I used to box with at St. Martin's on Avenue D. And I knew kids from my neighborhood, man. I grew up here. This is, you know what I mean? But they could have put me in a pit with dudes from the north side. That's what we called them, pits. I don't even remember how many people, 13, 14 people in a pit. It's all jail cells, old ass jail cells. They could have put me up there on, with dudes from the north side. I don't know no one on the north side. And I'm white. And let's just keep it real. You go to our county jail and end up on the mainframe and you're white and you don't know nobody, your ass is hit. They might let you stay till commissary and then they just whoop you, man. You got 10, 11 people whooping your ass up there.
We got one.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine living every day just looking over your shoulder and just waiting for something, anything, like anxiety running at a high all the time. Like, how can you ever be relaxed? Like, was there any time that you were relaxed?
In prison, yeah, there's times when you relax when they have a fog count. If they have a fog count, everybody gets locked in their cell and you can finally be like, you come out, they open the doors, you go to breakfast, and then you come back, they're like, fog count, lock in. And then you're finally like, you can get an hour of sleep, hour and a half, 2 hours of sleep because there's a fog count. Everybody's locked in and you're safe. Most of the time. You could be locked in with your cellie and your cellie's an animal.
Yeah.
And, now you're in trouble. But for the most part, dudes are living with dudes that they could live with. Let me tell you this, though. Like I just said, you could end up in a cell. I did a video on my YouTube channel probably about a month and a half ago where this dude's a GD and a black disciple. The GD ends up, he had already knocked someone out in the county jail and, took it. I don't know if your viewers know what I mean. I don't want to say the R word. So eventually what happens is he ends up in USP Pollock. Well, while he's in Pollock, he gets another cellie. He ends up killing his cellie in that cell. I don't know what he did to him or if he did anything, But really, that dude shouldn't have been in a cell with anybody else after he's already knocking out his cellies and taking their, their bootay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't want to say too much, but he ends up in the cell. He kills the dude. Dude's dead in the cell for 3 days before the cops realize. Puts him into bed, covers him up, and he's accepting his trays during the lockdown, eating his food, eating, the dead dude's food, and for 3 days, man. I mean, this is federal prison. This is the shit that's going on there.
In the areas that you were at, how common is the booty bandits? And
Well, let me tell you this. There's a few dudes in there they're going to do their thing anyway. You hear me? So it's not like people want to make it out to be that way. Are there dudes that do crazy shit that, take dudes and yeah, I mean, that happens. Not as often as people might want to believe or think. That doesn't happen all the time because there's plenty of dudes in there banging dudes for stamps. You know what I'm saying? There's homosexuals in there, bro. But are there booty bandits? Yeah, there are, but it's not as prevalent as you might think. As I went down from the maximum security to the FCI, the medium security, you started to see it more, where dudes were trying to, I guess you could say trick dudes out of their butt. You know what I mean? You see that stuff in the FCI. You get to a low, dude, they're doing wild shit. You got one cop for 300 dudes. What do you think's happening at the low? 3 floors. Them cops are heavy set, older. They're not walking up the steps. They walk up when they got to do the count. That's it. They don't give a shit, man. They ain't walking up them steps. Dude might have you in the back bathroom in the Hucklebuck. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I've seen some wild shit in there, bro.
Is there anything that stands out the most, the worst that you just cannot get out of your head?
Yeah, man. I seen this kid get massacred, man, on Halloween 2009 at USP Lee. He was a bulldog from California. I think he was from Fresno. His name was Herman. Yeah, that was his real name. So he's beefing with the Norteños over a cell. He's in the Norteño cell. They're like, yo, bro, come out to the yard. And they stabbed the shit out of this cat, man. And he was pretty much like, hey, man, help me. He asked me to help him. And I'm like, man, I can't help you. Just keep walking. Go to the shack. He lived a couple doors down from me. I talked to him periodically. And I had a little store in there. He'd buy sodas. And he ended up living, man. But it was pretty vicious, dude. He was full of blood. I seen another cat get killed. And when I seen the dude get killed, I think that affected me a little bit, man. Really, he was trying to send someone back up to protective custody, and dude wasn't having it. He pulled out a knife and he stabbed him in the chest. And this cat was probably going home in like 90 days. And he jumped back, put his hands up, was like, oh, you bit, and you stabbed me? And he dropped, dude. And you watch someone die, and you're like, wow, I watched the dude die, man.
How common was that in there?
Federal prison is pretty common. Getting hit with steel rebar, lock tied onto a sock. People say lock in a sock. Really what they do is they tie it on there. If it's in a sock, it'll come flying out. The weight will rip the sock. So usually you tie it on the sock and then, you whack it.
You get one in the face, that's going to open you up pretty big. That's true.
Yeah, it's pretty vicious, man.